In Parshas Vayechi, Yaakov is on his deathbed, and he's speaking to his 12 sons. And over here, he formally coins Yehuda, who is his fourth son, as the leader of the Jewish people. He compares him to a lion, and instead of the kingship in Judaism going to the firstborn of the tribes, Reuven, it's given to Judah, the tribe of Yehuda. As the pasuk says, Gur Aryeh Yehuda, Yehuda is like a lion. In other words, his tribe will have the kings in Judaism. Why? And the pasuk says, Miteref b'ni Alisa, because you elevated yourself from prey. What does that mean? Rashi refers to two stories which seem to show the leadership qualities of Yehuda. First of all, when his brothers wanted to turn Joseph into prey, when they wanted to kill their brother Yosef, Yehuda elevated above them. He said, let's not kill him. Ma betza, what are we going to gain by killing our brother? Instead, let's sell him to the Arabs, let's sell him as a slave to Egypt. So that was his nobleness. And the second story refers to when he was in a relationship with Tamar, and she got pregnant, and he thought maybe she cheated with someone when she wasn't supposed to. So he judged her to death, he sentenced her to death, and then she hinted to him that it was you, and he admitted, and he came forward and said, Tzadka mimeni, she's more righteous than me, or she had the baby from me, and so there was no sin. These are the two stories that seem to prove Yehuda's integrity and his ability for leadership. And that's why he became the king and not Reuven. But when you look at those stories, Reuven has actually pretty similar stories, and he seems to have done a better job, and more nobly even, than Yehuda. In fact, we see a few areas in Torah where there's a similarity between them, or they both seem to come up for leadership, yet we see Torah always sides with the leadership of Yehuda and not Reuven. What are the stories that are similar? Reuven also wanted to save his brother Yosef. He told his brothers, when they wanted to actually kill him, he said, no, let's put him in a pit. Why? And the Torah says, because he wanted to come back later when the brothers left, and he'd take him out of the pit and bring him back to his father. Very noble. In fact, it even seems more noble than what Yehuda did. Yehuda didn't mind killing his brother. He just said, we have no gain. Ma betza, what do we gain by killing our brother? Instead, let's sell him. Reuven had much more noble intentions. He said, let's put him in the pit, because he planned on actually coming back to save him and bring him back home, which is seemingly much greater than Yehuda. Yet we see this story is a reason that Yehuda became the leader, not Reuven. Another thing, we say that Yehuda owned up to his Avera, so to say, or owned up to end up not killing Tamar. Reuven also owned up to his Avera of confusing his father's bed and switching his father's bed out of the tent of the maidservants to the tent of his mother to honor his mother's dignity. And when he saw that his father was upset, it says that he was fasting and asking for repentance for 9 years. In fact, the whole reason why he didn't end up taking Yosef back to his father was because he was in the middle of repenting when the brothers sold him to the Arabs. And whose act of repentance was more noble over there? Yehuda was in a story where he was in a relationship, seemingly, that was with a Zaina, which is a harlot, that he wasn't seemingly, strictly according to Torah, it wasn't through a proper marriage process. He was about to kill an innocent woman, and then he owned up to it. That seemingly is pretty crass. Versus Reuven, who, out of sensitivity for his mother's dignity, tried enhancing the shalom bias between her and her husband, tried making her the main akaras habayis. He was much more well-meaning, and then when he saw what his father was upset, he didn't just own up to it with a simple sentence like Yehuda. He owned up to it for 9 years. He seemingly is much more of a holy and aligned person than Yehuda. Yet we see in these stories are the reason why Yehuda became king, not Reuven. Why? And the answer and the profile of a difference between Reuven and Yehuda is there's a fundamental difference between them. Yes, it could be Reuven was a more spiritually perfect person, a more sensitive person, a more edel and refined person, perhaps even of better character. The problem was no one ever benefited from that. His main focus in life was self-perfection, self-alignment, purifying himself, purifying his mind, purifying his heart, and becoming the best him he could become. The problem was that didn't end up helping anyone else. Leadership is defined by how you're able to lead other people. Being a king is how you're able to be in Melech B'Le'am, or the king is compared to the heart of the entire body. The heart's function is to pump blood to the entire body. The king's definition is that he's not a man for himself. He is a man of the people, and his whole definition of success is based on how he handles other people. Yeah, maybe Yehuda was more crass, but at the end of the day, what he did ended up practically benefiting other people. And he wasn't, the center of his life wasn't his own self-perfection, his own spirituality, but the center of his life was, can I elevate other people? And can I do things that will benefit people around me? Look at the story of Yosef. Yes, maybe Reuven's intentions were better, but at the end of the day, who stopped Yosef from dying in a pit? It was Yehuda. In fact, why did Reuven not save Yosef from the pit? Because he was busy with his self-perfection and repentance, fasting for the sin that he did. So while he's busy working on his own self-perfection, Reuven's busy helping out his brother practically. With the best intentions? Maybe not. For financial gain even? Possibly. But at the end of the day, he's there to help. Versus Reuven, who the center of his life was not around other people and getting things done. It was around his own life and self-alignment and spiritual perfection. We have this in many places in Torah, but also in this case of the repentance. At the end of the day, Yehuda's repentance benefited Tamar. It saved a life. Reuven's repentance did not save a life, did not save Yosef's life. And this is a common theme between Yehuda and Reuven. And this is why Yehuda was chosen to be the leader of the Jewish people. Because leadership in Judaism doesn't mean spiritual self-perfection, doesn't mean someone that's of better character even necessarily, but it means someone that's given over to people around to make a difference. Someone that, as Chassidus says, has Mesiras Nefesh B'Nafshay. Not only Mesiras Nefesh B'Gufay, not only he gives of his body, but he gives of his soul. That means he finds the primary point of his life, not self-perfection, not to even make himself his best self, but to answer a calling, which is, I'm here to help my people, and I'm given over to them, with only thinking about yourself secondary. There's a famous story of a writer went to the Rebbe, I think it was Herman Wouk, and the Rebbe told him, or he asked the Rebbe what's the definition of his job, and he said to lead the Jewish people. I'm missing some details. And the author asked the Rebbe, and how do you think you're doing? How are you doing with your job? So the Rebbe said, by definition, my job is to be a Rosh B'nai Yisrael, a head of the Jewish people, which means that my job isn't defined by how I'm doing. My job is defined by how much I'm getting across to the people around me. So the only one that could tell me how good of a job I'm doing is you, because my entire job is how it's perceived by the Zulas. And the lesson from this Dvar Torah, the lesson from the Sikha we have to learn, is that we are all called upon to be kings. By Mount Sinai, we were called Mamlaches Kayanim, a kingdom of priests. We are a kingdom. Every Jew has a spark of Moses. Every Jew has a spark of leadership. And that spark of leadership is when we decide that our life's not about ourselves, not even about our spiritual selves, our self-alignment, our mental health, our emotional health. Those are all important, and we do need to work on that. And Judaism, there's a lot of space in Judaism for that. But when we realize that the primary point of what we're doing here in life is to help the people around us and to make a difference to this world, to our brothers and sisters, to the Jewish people, and to the world around us at large. And when we step into this role, we activate our inner leader, our inner king, our inner Mashiach, which eventually brings Mashiach to the entire world. Have a great Shabbos. And this learning this week should be l'schus the Jews in California specifically, obviously, of course, in Eretz Yisrael, and California who are going through the wildfires and are misplaced and lost homes. Everyone should hear Yeshua's B'Karev and Mashiach now.